everybody, it's Kara Brown. We're back for another video, and this week we are going to talk about working with an editor. Casey wants you to know that I actually have some author news to tell you at the end of the video, so if you stay tuned to the end of that, I'll be able to talk to you guys about some stuff. If you're here to learn about the different types of edits that are done in the industry, I'm not covering that in this video. What I'm actually talking about is just working with an editor in general. There are a lot of other videos that are actually done that talk about the different types of edits. You can go find those, or if you just want me to talk about it, just let me know in a comment down below and I'll be sure to cover that content with you. Okay, no, seriously, you have to get down now. This is serious. So when people are first talking about editors, there's always like a little bit of anxiety, some fear, and it's kind of justified because you're basically giving your work to somebody to get feedback and finding out things that you possibly either did wrong or corrections that need to be made. And a lot of people really struggle with being told that their book is just not perfect. However, one thing that I can tell you that might make you feel a little bit better is that editors are people too. They have feelings, stresses, they gotta pay bills as well, and I want to say about probably 99.5% of them don't wake up in the morning looking to piss in your cereal, so they're not coming at you in a malicious manner when they're working with you. They're there to actually look at your work and help you find ways to improve it. But Kara, I already know how to, write my own stuff, and my grammar's really good, so do I really need an editor? Yeah, you do. An editor should be a professional that works in the industry that has some insight that they can bring. And not only that, but they're not as close to your work as you are right now. Because when you get like really deep in there are just things that you don't see where an outsider is going to be able to look at and be like, did you know that you have this weird thing going on right here? These are also individuals who not only have an English degree, they also have a background in working with publishers and editing for those publishers, which allows them to have the ability to be objective with your work, where you will be more up in arms about protecting pretty much every single darling that you have in there. But Kara, I already go to a writing group, and my writing group finds all my grammar issues, my plot holes, and basically anything else that's wrong, so why do I need an editor? I wrote a very long blog post in regards to writing groups. It's all positive, but writing groups do have their pitfalls as well. But one of the pitfalls that I experienced when I was going to writing group is, first off, I could only bring 6 pages a week. My novel is several hundred pages long, so it does take a long time to get through stuff. I do have individuals that come and go, they don't know things, they need clarification. And not to mention that I have an individual at my group who is frequently confused about everything. And so when they're reading the work, they say, I need this to be clarified, I need more details here, and things like that. Which, when you're reading it 6 pages a week, that makes sense, but when you're reading it from the beginning to the end as an actual reader, it comes off really redundant, which is something that my editor pointed out in my work when she was going through it. Now, if you are an indie author looking for an editor, you can find them in a couple of different places. A lot of professional editors usually have like their own website that you can go to. Some of them are actually here on YouTube where they talk about editing and things that you can do to make the editing process a lot smoother. You can also expect for them to have, I don't want to say hefty prices, but they definitely have some varying prices. And while there is a website, and I'll link that down below so that way you can educate yourself in regards to what the fees for editing should be, some people will charge more because they have time experience and they have a very long resume about books that they've worked with. One of the things I would like to point out if you are an indie author looking for an editor is that it's really important for you to find somebody who actually knows your genre, not a related subgenre, but is actually very familiar with it, because a lot of the horror stories that I hear in regards to working with editors usually comes from the fact that it's an editor that is not familiar with what they're writing. One situation that I can talk about is with one of my friends who wrote a space novel, basically stuff happening out in space, and the editor went to go look at it, but the editor normally just worked with romance. And so that proved to be a problem because a lot of the things that are expected in romance novels didn't happen in his book, and she just wasn't familiar with a lot of the terminology, and she ended up telling this one person that you can only use the word hatch like 4 times in the book, and if you're in a spaceship, hatch is going to show up more than 4 times in a book. But I do have a friend that is an editor. She's pretty experienced with multiple genres, and if not, she's willing to educate herself if you take the time to talk to her about it. Her name's Jamie. I'll link her stuff down below. She's really professional, really good. I like her a lot. She was the person I was talking to before I got picked up by 8 Little Pages. So let's go ahead and let's just dive into what you can expect when you're working with an editor. So before you actually send all of your stuff to an editor, you should probably proofread and self-edit your book, which for a lot of you sounds like common sense, but I do have friends that are editors that have talked about how they get manuscripts where the person wrote it and just basically sent them the first draft. If you're not very confident in your ability to do self-edits, this is a really good book right here. It's on Amazon. I read it a few times. It's got some good tips in there, and as you can tell, it's for fiction. So give it a look at, brush yourself up. Please proofread your stuff. So you proof it and then you send it, and then you pretty much have to wait, because depending on the length of your novel depends on when you're going to get it back. It could be anywhere from a week to a couple of months. Really depends on what needs to be done. Developmental edits usually take a lot longer than line edits, and line edits take less time than proofreading. When your editor is done with everything that they're going to do, they should be sending you a few things. They for sure should be sending you an edit document where they talk about the overall thoughts or concerns that they have. This can be anywhere between 2 and 5 pages. They'll talk about things from plot holes or lack of character development, or they'll talk about tedious repetitious words that you may need to switch out throughout your book. The other thing that you're going to get is a document with your manuscript that has their comments on the side. Now this can either be a Word document, or if you've got somebody working with Google, it'll be a Google document too. It should basically have highlights in there that kind of says this doesn't work, or this does work, or if you're very lucky, they'll say, "Taha, this made me laugh." Now the hard part is when your editor comes to you with things that you need to change in your book, or things that you need to fix. Now this can be anything from you need to change the POV from third to first person, or it can also mean that you have to cut 10,000 words out of your manuscript. One of the things that I got back when I got my first round of edits from 8 Little Pages is that they said you need to cut at least 10,000 words out. I cut 11,000 out. And they didn't just come out and say just cut any 10,000 words. They were literally you can cut these kind of things and you can cut those kind of things, and maybe tidy that up a little bit. Now, since we're talking about editor feedback, I do want to talk about some red flags in working with an editor, and these are usually things that are just no-go for me. The first thing is that a lack of professionalism in the feedback is usually a huge red flag for me. So for example, if I read something and the person says, "I hate this character and I can't believe you wrote them this way," that sounds really bad when you compare it to, "I'm a little concerned about the relatability of this character and maybe we need to tweak it." And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the not my genre thing, that's also a huge red flag. When I was originally working, I had intended to actually self-publish my book. I had reached out to Jamie, who again I'm going to link down below, and I reached out to her because not only did she edit my genre, but she also wrote a book in my genre. I read the book, it was good, so at least I already knew when I started working with her that she knew what she was talking about. And another red flag that I would probably bring up, and this is a debatable one, you can voice your opinion down below if you really want to, is kind of where you found them. I've heard plenty of horror stories about people that hired editors from Fiverr and some other independent self-employed sites. You just do that at your own risk, because sometimes you can get really good stuff and sometimes you just get absolute garbage back. So, and this is your money. I would be really particular about where you send your money to. And this isn't me saying that you have to go and find a really expensive editor. It's just cheap does not make it better, and this is your book, and you do want somebody that does have the credentials, the experience, and the know-how to be looking at your book, not just somebody that just says that they're an editor without being able to prove their credentials. So at this point in the video, we need to go ahead and ask ourselves, what kind of edits do I need? If you are an indie author, this is definitely a question that applies a lot more to you, because you have to pay for each of these services. Again, I'm not going to dive too deep into the various services, but if you are an indie author, you definitely need to have the line edits, and you definitely need to have a proofread. If you are a traditionally published author, you're going to do whatever edits that they tell you that you're going to do. So I want to digress back to the indie authors again real quick. If you are an indie author, some people will tell you that you need to do a developmental edit. There is another YouTuber here. He is called Level Up Writer, really knowledgeable, big fan by the way. And he did a video in regards to, do you need a developmental edit? And his argument was against it. And I'm going to link it down below because he has some really good points that I want to be able to share, but I don't want to paraphrase his work because he says it way better than I can. But I would also agree that having a developmental edit kind of depends on you and what you need, but he's, like I said, he's got good points, definitely worth to watch. I think the last thing that I do want to mention when it comes to working with an editor is that you need to be ready to know what you're talking about, because like I said, they are going to go through and they are going to question things, and it's better to have them question things and you two work it out together than to push it through without fact checking and having your reader find out and then discrediting you for it because it makes it seem like you don't know what you're talking about. So that's pretty much the A to Z to working with an editor, what to expect and what kind of engagements that you should have. Again, you can pretty much find editors anywhere. If you are an indie author, again, you can look for their personal websites. If you're looking to go through kind of like a one-shop website where they do all the stuff there, I do know that they have like BookBaby has their own editing services, and they do all of those things, and they even calculate in the cost before you publish your book. I do know that 8 Little Pages still does their indie services, and one of the indie services that they do is an editor service, and they do have several editors there that you can work with. If you do decide to go with an indie service place, don't be surprised if you actually have to get on a wait list, because more than one person is looking for these services, and it's not something that can be done overnight. I want to say probably the fastest I've seen somebody go and edit a book was 2 weeks, but that was the only book that they were working on for the entire duration of 2 weeks. So it could take time. So if you're looking to do it real fast, you don't want to do that, because if there's one thing you don't want to do, it's rush the quality of your book. That is pretty much it. That's everything that you need to know about working with an editor, and that brings me into basically the author update that I would like to share with you guys. I heard that 8 Little Pages has a special announcement coming out in the newsletter that they're publishing very soon. If you are not signed up for the newsletter for 8 Little Pages, you can definitely go ahead and do that below. I also have some information that's coming out in my newsletter that should be arriving next week on the 28th, and if you are signed up for my newsletter, the giveaway is still going. I'm trying to reach 100 subscribers. I did the count the other day. I have 73. Not quite where I want it to be, but we're almost there. Spread the word. You get free stuff. Just not to mention that you still get a free copy of my short story that's out right now. And if you do happen to actually read the short story, I would really appreciate a review, because authors need reviews in order to generate sales. It is proven that people tend to gravitate towards the books that have more reviews than fewer. So please help me. Anyway, that is me. I am done, and I'm going to go and console my poor panicking dog right now, and I hope you all have a great weekend.